Good morning, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Team Lease's webinar series. We've been conducting these webinars every week since the onset of COVID-19. It's a bit of a milestone for us today, as today's session will be the 25th webinar in the last 6 months. And the topic for today's discussion is this: business beyond COVID-19, reimagining people, process, and technology. And to share their thoughts on this, we have with us as panelists today, Mr. Atul Sharma, Head HR of Talent Acquisition, Performance, Rewards, and Operations at Sony Pictures Networks, which is one of the largest players in TV media space in the world, with a user base of over 700 million people across 167 countries. He has 20 years plus of professional experience under his belt across various organizations such as Airtel, Reliance, Ad Factors, and so on. He is by qualification an MSW HRM from Kurukshetra University. Welcome to our panel, Atulji. We are extremely proud to have you on the panel today.
Thank you, Bala. Thanks for the introduction. My pleasure and honor to be a part of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Milind Sulaki, CFO of CTDI, which is a full-service global engineering, repair, and logistics company based out of the US, providing best cost solutions to the communications industry. A chartered accountant by qualification, Milind also has over 20 years of experience in his kitty across varied organizations such as Future Group, WNS, Owens Corning, etc. The common thread between these two panelists, eminent panelists that I have on board with me here, is that while Atul is with Sony, Milind was with Sony just before joining CTDI very recently. He was a part of their DADC arm, which is one of the largest suppliers of Blu-ray discs in Southeast Asia. So welcome to our panel discussion, Mr. Milind. It's an absolute privilege to host you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bala.
Once again, to all the viewers, the topic today is business beyond COVID-19, reimagining people, process, and technology. To set the context here, India's priority right off the bat has been to protect lives. But in some ways, a bigger priority right now is to protect livelihoods. See, estimates say that over 12 crore people lost their jobs during the lockdown. And to put that in perspective, we are a country with a population of over 130 crores, and out of which it is estimated that roughly about 60 crore people are part of the workforce. So 12 out of those 60 crore people, that's about 20%. 1 in every 5 people lost their jobs during the lockdown. But it was a difficult call for us to make, considering that India has a lethal combination of high population and a very high population density as well. So we had to pick and choose our battles. But now, if you look at the situation, this is the side effect of that decision that we took to reduce loss of lives. Our economy has tanked in Q1 by about 24%, which is among the worst for any country in this period. This is nothing but the sum total of the impact faced by establishments across India in this period. Every firm has been affected to some degree or the other. Now, one thing is for certain: the way we go about our business, the way we look at people, process, and technology may also need to change for good going forward. Our two panelists today here represent two very different functions, HR and finance, and they are both the leaders of the respective functions in MNCs. So I'm really looking forward to getting their perspectives on this. And viewers, please use the comment section to post your questions. You can start posting questions even now. You may, of course, receive the answers to some of your questions over the course of the discussion itself. However, keep them coming. At the end of the discussion, we will pick out some of the questions and post them to our panelists. And without further ado, I would just like to get this started. To begin with, Mr. Atul, I just wanted you to maybe reflect on how the past few months have been. What has been the impact of COVID on your business and workforce?
Thanks, Bala. And very interesting topic. And since you started this conversation and asking me to reflect upon past couple of months, this is and I believe everyone facing this kind of situation for the first time in their lifetime came as a shock, surprised, and to an extent, I'll say some bit of denial also. That in the beginning, like SARS in 2004, it remained somewhere Singapore and Far East Asian countries. Probably this kind of pandemic will also not come to India. But today, world is far more integrated and one world kind of situation, and it came. So our first reaction was extremely cautious. We initiated a lockdown and work from home kind of thing. even before government announced it. Um, Initially, we were thinking that probably in a month or so it will get over, or it may be controlled, and we'll break the cycle of virus, and probably things will start moving in. But the way things developed in Europe and later on in India also, it gave us a very good clarity that it is not going to go very easily and are going to stay. In terms of business, it has a huge impact. Contrary to public's belief that, in this point of time, these lockdown days, people watch TV or web series and all that, and it's a very good time from the business angle for media organizations. However, to an extent, it was right. But the other side was very, very bad. Two aspects. One, there was no shoots happening, and hence new content were not available. Whatever was available, which was in process, it came to us by second week of April, and after that there was no new content available, and we were forced to go back to our library content, which people must have seen it. And initial days, you must have seen, nostalgic memories of those mythological series and all that came back. But ultimately, business is business, and Milind can understand if your factory is not working, which in our case is our content production facilities, we were on the crossroad. The second aspect, which was even more important, was the source of revenue for us. All media industries, companies especially, when you look at their revenue stream, largely dependent on ad revenue. And ads comes from the spenders. When business was not happening all around, naturally their propensity to spend money as far as the ads are concerned was very limited. And the first quarter for us was almost wiped out completely as far as the ad revenue is concerned. And not only for Sony, but I believe for all media organization across, even in print, other than electronic, when I'm talking. Only Netflix kind of company, which works only on a subscription model, probably remain unaffected, but all other companies had a bad hit when I say. So this was almost like first quarter was zero ad revenue. Put double pressure. One, the content is not coming, and second, now ad revenue is also going down the drain. We had a very, very difficult time. And looking from the employee side, lots of anxieties. One, because they are working alone from their home. That social interaction, social dynamics, which was giving a lot of people a lot of energy, being in a workplace, surrounded by people, all those things were missing. Then the issues, family related issues. Bombay especially has a smaller houses, setting up in a corner in those houses as your office is a difficult thing. And when kids moving around, and one kitchen, something is cooking up, and all those sort of things. So smaller issues to larger issue, which are leading to mental anxieties, lot of suspicion on one's, whether job is going to stay or not. So all those things started playing in. So it had a multi-dimensional impact on everyone, which is, I say, physical, because the long working hours and office environment is not there in the home. So physical, then mental, as I mentioned. Social aspect, I mentioned, those interactions and meetings and human dynamics were missing. And lastly, the economical, because revenue streams as well as the content pipeline, content factory was not operating. Everywhere the question mark. So we dealt with all these so far successfully. Given the opportunity, I can give you a little brief on that. But these months were, I say personally, of great learning. How human being can deal with a crisis, and which is a global crisis. First quarter, as I mentioned, was bad, but second quarter onward started picking up, and it is a sign of resilience of human nature. Government allowed limited kind of shoots to happen, so production of new episodes and new content started one, and many things. So one is learning. Second, how we can leverage the technology. So somebody was asking me, and I was reading somewhere, and so I quoted back. I said, one thing which pushed a digital revolution or technological revolution in the workplace, was it a chief technology officer or chief information officer or a chief digital officer? Who was the person? I said pandemic. COVID was the biggest factor which pushed it. And the very good part is that even Supreme Courts of India started their operation hearing cases online. And believe me, all the senior judges there, respected judges, they are in the age group where, learning new things, learning digital way is not very easy.
Yeah.
But again, they set an example for everyone and everywhere. Even kindergarten schools classes are going online. So from Supreme Court to schools online, going shows a tremendous capability of a human being to learn to deal with the unwanted and undesirable situation, and we can learn things fast. Probably it's the biggest confidence booster as far as our survivability is concerned. So in nutshell, this is what my reflection for last couple of months.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us this perspective. So same question, Mr. Milind. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on your business and the workforce overall? What's your reflection on that?
Yeah. So this is very interesting period of our lives. So Atul has explained really well as to how, human aspect of it. I will talk more from a finance and for our industry specific, because we are into repairs industry and we are catering to all IT equipments and telecommunication backends. So for that, our immediately starting work was very essential, because otherwise network would have been down. So we are like a backend to them. So as soon as this was announced, first of all, as Atul has mentioned, we were in shock, first of all, as to what has happened actually. So then we immediately started, we visited police officers and then tried to get those passes, at least so that then how many passes will be allotted to every location, because we have offices in Gurgaon, Mumbai, Bangalore. So for every place, we visited the police officers or municipalities and to get the passes, so that we can put at least some people on the job. And because see, what happens is, since so it has affected a lot of temp employees. People just flew out of Bangalore the moment it was announced. So whoever was available, we just picked those employees from wherever they are, from even vicinities. We made the transportation arrangements, so on and so forth. The first thing was to support the business, right? To support the whole system, and for that we were putting in a lot of effort on that front. Employees were really, we're in two minds actually, whether we should go to office or not, what will happen. And so there was all the enough precautions were taken actually, daily sanitizations and so every precaution was taken, mask, this, that. But then how to organize the food, then even the canteens were arranged with the social distancing, so on and so forth. So lots and lots of measures. And but thankfully, we were able to support our customers, and the end effect of it is customer was happy because of the support during this such tough time. Because and see, we were supporting, say, some big IT companies for the repairs of motherboards and all that. So if somebody's laptop is not working, that is the biggest priority which became during this period. So when we were able to support those, they were able to support the end customer. So that way it was very helpful for them, and they really appreciated our effort during this period. From employees front, it was big learning for me, to work from home basically. Although it was a thought that whether it will work in India at any point of time, because as Atul has mentioned, I was a Mumbaiker, so there's not enough place in the house for you to sit and work, right? So but then to implement it would have been, it would have been impossible. But because of this pandemic, the whole of finance function today is working out of home, right? And now I am even thinking that whether they should come back to office or not, because my work is happening right now. So there is no need for me to make an arrangement. Only, once in a week or so, whenever there are meetings, I can call them. So these are the basic things which have changed. As a human beings, actually, we are spending lesser time in commute, having better weather, so called. But yeah, the personal touch is missing, which is where I would take Atul's some guidance as to how to handle this, because this personal touch is missing, which is really affecting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the business is on now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you touched upon a very interesting aspect there. The personal touch is now working out to an extent for us because we already know the people whom we are working with right now. But then if this happens over a period of time, then some existing people might move out, new people will come in, and the rapport will not be there without the personal touch. So it's an interesting problem for everyone to Milind. Thanks so much for your perspective on that. Now that you've both clearly explained what exactly has been the impact of COVID on your businesses and also on your workforce, we would also like to get some perspective around how your respective organizations are reviewing this crisis and planning the road to recovery, and also thinking about how are we leading this new normal now. So perspectives on that, Atulji?
Okay, first of all, in the absence of any decided date that this is the time when we will move from old normal, I use the term, and a few days ago we were debating internally our business continuity team, BCP team, and I was advocating for some people to be allowed, as government has allowed 30% of workforce inside the office. Why we should not allow our people to come? Because that mental aspect or the social interaction aspect, it can cater on a rotation basis to an extent. And someone very senior asked me, but how do you define normal? So this is the perspective, but there is a continuity element which is going on at this point of time, and which will transcend into a comparatively normal situation. I'll use that term because then everybody will start asking a definition of my normal and your normal. In terms of readiness, or in terms of how we are dealing, first of all, what we are dealing, and then the continuation of that will come out. So we kept on reaching out to our people on a very, very regular basis. When I say, even we used our summer interns program, and because we were committed, those interns came. So we asked them also to reach out, do surveys, questionnaires, and if possible, small, focus group discussions with the different employee segments, some, working mothers, some, people, those who are staying in a very, very smaller houses. So we picked and chosen our segments and did a employee voice on a very regular basis, and realized that there are certain things which we need to do definitely in order to facilitate their work from home, if this is not going to be as we were working earlier. So, as Socrates has said, the secret of all your change management, Socrates had not used the word management, but secret of all change is to focus all your energies not on building or breaking the old, but to build the new. So we then focused everything what we can do for them. Starting from some infrastructure support, say, everybody was given broadband connections, reimbursement completely, so that they feel comfortable that if they are doing this thing, there is someone who is going to take care about this expense. Some kind of discussion like they are saving the cost of their commute, so why they can't do it? I said, there's no point, because at this point of time, in this environment, everybody is working, they need to be given. Provided them wireless Bluetooth headsets of Sony, which is our mother company, and we purchased it for everyone who are working for us, so that they can work in at least in some kind of peaceful environment. Home core chores and those kind of disturbances will not affect their way of working. Also, I made arrangements for their mental well-being. So what we did, we have an employee assistance program, which is our global assistance program, but at the same time, we arranged for counselor support. So in case there is some kind of issue, you are feeling lonely, you are feeling frustrated, you are feeling demotivated or isolated, there is a counselor support available on call. Try to do everything what you make available in the office environment is not possible. That is one thing which one has to accept it. But whatever best we can do. So we ran a program actually, and since Milind was asking, we ran a program called ACE, which was Act, Connect and Engage. And in this, there are some physical aspect, physiological work aspect, like broadband, internet, those kind of Bluetooth headsets. Those who are working from office, which are post-production guys, arrangement for their commuting to workplace, COVID testing facilities, Now we have given a COVID insurance on top of medical insurance, which is called COVID Kavach. That product is available, and we immediately went for that. Counselor supports. So all these things which we tried to cover in this ACE umbrella. Apart from that, reaching out to people and arrange their learning programs, because at this point of time, sometimes these kind of things start impacting them. And these learning programs were not like a typical training programs which we used to organize when they were there in the offices. It was more of a, you learn different aspects of life. For example, we are running two series. One is called Fireside Chat, where we invite eminent speakers from different walks of life. So somebody is running a program on disability engagement, or program activist on disabilities. One person we invited, Ira Singhal. She was the first disability person who topped civil services exam. Huge example. She's working in a very senior position in Delhi administration and fighting with COVID. Lady had disability. She topped this thing. It's a lifelong example, and they're thinking different dimensions of life. Then we had another chat on the Fireside, if I'm recalling correctly, Raga De Silva. She's an LGBTQ activist, and how importance is the status of LGBTQ as far as the equality is concerned. How important is for one to be sensitive about that. So different aspects of the life we tried to give them. Another chat was by Muzaffar Lakdawala. Dr. Lakdawala is running in Mumbai's largest COVID quarantine center at NSCI Dome. It is the largest quarantine center. His learnings, how to deal with what kind of things can impact one, and what we should do, what we should not do, major apprehension, unfounded ideas which we had about COVID. We had approximately design time of about 1.5 hours, and that talk went about 2.5 hours, and then even after that questions were pouring in. The idea was to keep your employee engaged to the different facets of life, rather than giving them work and getting the work out of them. The second series was, which is what we call is a Power Talk. Power Talk, again, is not a normal kind of training program. It's a small 1 or 2 hour kind of chat like we are doing here on a webinar type. But it is an exclusive for us, our employees, and everyone is free to join, including CEO to even the last person in the organization. And here we invited people from business areas, but different business areas. For example, we invited someone who is right now Reliance Sports Entertainment Company, Reliance IMGR's CEO, and he was a former COO for IPL, Sundaraman. Similarly, we invited Ajay Piramal. Similarly, we invited very interesting conversation happened with Mr. R.S. Sodhi, who is the MD and CEO of, in a common parlance, Amul, the milk cooperative. So he was there. Apart from that, last was, if I am not mistaken, it was Vikram Sakhuja, who is MD and CEO of Medicine Media Buying Agency. So these people are coming in, and they are not only talking about COVID, how they are dealing at this point of time, setting a very good motivational talk for the people, those who may feel like that things are not improving, things are not working fine. And when you see other examples, like Milind gave us a few examples, how their company thought about the customers and their priorities, and then working for that, sets a very good example, especially for a person who is going through this kind of mental, downslide, negative thoughts are coming in because of many things are not going right. So when is going to, when you see in different walks of life, people are fighting, people are doing well, and people are trying to, keep the sanity intact. These are the very good kind of engagement conversations and engagement efforts. So when you look at from at least what we have done, looking partially the physiological or physical related aspect, wellness related aspect, and aspects related where they can get a different dimensions of the life, different subtleties of the life. And probably then looking after the idea which is the core, and where finance and HR are working. I think probably in my 20-year plus lifetime, I'm seeing for the first time this kind of collaboration, because without finance help, we can't do anything. And finance showing such a huge sensitivity towards a human issue, despite that revenues are not coming in that flow, but they are more than willing to help the organization and say, and which is at this point of time people only. These all expenses which I was talking is coming from the finances help only. And working on those ideas, those things, which may be a permanent one. So your second part of the question, how it is going to be future. The future is going to be like, I was reading another survey which happened in US, and it was mostly done by with the CFOs. And they see with work from home is getting successful, probably why not make it permanent? Why not save cost as far as the infrastructure and real estate is concerned? And it can be a permanent solution. If this is to be permanent solution, with a human touch, can we organize some kind of thing where everybody gets an opportunity to sometime to come to office? And what we are working right now, although it is a work in progress, but entire management committee we have taken in confidence, segment our employees in a category, and this model was many years back tried by American Express for their business need. It was not related to COVID. Segment their employees in 4 categories, which is employees who definitely need to work from office, and employees who can 99% work out of home. So home employees and home employees. Then you have 2 more categories like sales employees, which can work from anywhere, which we call roam employees. So home, roam, and hub. And the last one is club. And club is those who can sometime come to office, sometime work from in our case, at the shooting location or discussion in the production house, anywhere. So somewhere less than roamer, but somewhere more than a hub employee. They need not be in the office so much as the hub employees, somewhere in between the two. So this segmentation, home, roam, hub, club, then the part 2 comes in play. And part 2, where we are right now working, the segmentation we have completed, is if we need to look at the policies of employees. Is the policy which are applicable for hub employees are applicable for home employees, or home employees need something different? So now the policy differentiation, and then keeping an arrangement, if this kind of things, people move from one category to other category, how are we going to deal with that? So customization of policy as per the categorization, and then keeping a possibility open for their movement from one category to other category, keeping a buffer built in. And these kind of model, HR person need to be tied up completely to the hip with the finance and commercial team, because ultimately it is not the real estate which they are trying to save. It is ultimately our effort to keep our employees away from this kind of pandemic, which is still, the numbers are still growing. So you cannot take chance, even if government has allowed 30% that you can call. And with safe social distancing norms which are there, you cannot, even if government allow even 100%, you cannot call 100%, because in office are not meant for social distancing thing. So there will be lesser number. So if lesser number going to be there in the office and more number of people going to be out of home or club or whatever, or roaming, roaming is also not happening because the client calls are happening also through Zoom and Skypes and Microsoft Teams. In that scenario, keeping that very cookie cutter approach that this is the HR policies and this has to work on everyone is not going to be. So our future is segment employees, segment policies, look into the infrastructure aspect, look into the communication, and which is the most important piece. Everything will fall flat on the face if communication is not right. Say for example, and I'm taking slight detour, this farmers bill, government believe that it is a very right thing. And I believe, say supposedly it is right, but communication is so poor that everywhere farmers are there up in the arms. So if I use this test case to our employees and I say, from employee safety's point of view, this home, room, hub, club model is right. We will be able to maintain social distance also. People will be saved from commuting also. So it's very good. But at the end of the day, I have not spoken to them. Unless say someone, I don't know whether you heard this term or not. Some Tughlaq is sitting in the corporate office and decide a policy and is implementing it. And he is not even checking and talking to us. So communication is very important. Socializing the idea is very important. Taking people along is very important because they are already very, very, um, mentally uh, in a very sandwiched kinds of place. So this is what, what we are doing or are intending to do as far as this thing is concerned. Even after that, personal wish, I think there will be a day when everything will vanish and we'll be back to the office.
So you are preparing yourself for the new normal, but you're still hoping for the old normal in a way.
I am a very strong believer of human nature and see why we have gone to universities and colleges and institutes. Why we did our studies, why we decided to go this way rather than sitting at home and did a self-study. Because when you go there, you interact with people and your interaction gives you lots of new dimension of learnings and that is, I feel, most important. Otherwise, every child can sit at home and learn online, but still you want your kid to go to school, learn to compete, learn hard way what the life is, learn how other think and how I need to react to that. Uh, that's a human dynamics, and I
Sure.
don't think so we should miss it.
Sure, absolutely. No, I think you've answered my next question as well, which is about what the future of work looks like. Uh,
Oh, that will be very interesting. But let Milan respond to this first.
Mr. Milind, so yeah, how do you think organizations are right now reviewing this crisis, planning the road to recovery, and leading the new normal from your perspective? And also, if you could bring in some flavor about what are the challenges faced by CFOs while dealing with this crisis and coming up with ways to go into the new normal. How difficult are investment decisions right now, especially with increasing digital adoption, when every cost is questioned and critically rationalized? That'll be great to hear from you.
See, fortunately, I mean, we did not have very big cash situation immediate, but as a business, I mean, if there is no business, there is no money coming in. So definitely initial setbacks were definitely big for us. So that has definitely affected us big time. So first of all, I mean, finance and HR is being handled by the same function here. And so to communicate with the employees as to you are supposed to come to office, and then there are certain functions, so classifying them, as Abdullah said, about those who need to come to office, those who did not come to office, we did all that. And then arranging the funds basically whenever they are required. And then there was, our office was very being closely monitored by our global office, because they were also really concerned about how are we implementing this, how are we, so even if we are supporting the businesses, are we taking enough precautions? If there are any cases, how are we handling those in the office? So all those things were taken care of. Even today, I mean, there is a daily call which happens with our headquarters, where we are supposed to give the updates as to how are we handling those situations. There is a weekly reports, I mean, all sorts of reporting is really happening. And then finance is of course the spoke for that, so that way we are working on those stuff. uh, Cash flow, we had a challenge. Then the next piece is what to invest, basically, as you was rightly said. So we are investing only where it is absolute bare minimum. So we are even looking at some refurbished options if they are available in the market, or how do we fund it? Is there an additional credit period which we can ask for, or a lease kind of a model? Even when we are buying something, it is when it is only required for meeting my customer demand. So if there is a huge WIP and I have to cater to that, only then in those situations we are buying something new. Otherwise, I mean, all the capex are frozen, headcount is frozen. So that when, as and when the customer needs arises, we are putting those resources there. So that's how we are handling it. As Atul has said, yeah, that there he needs that personal touch is essential. But there is another aspect, Atul, I would like to mention, yes, Bala, if you allow me. So see, there are working women, right? So there are a lot of them in my team. So I think, so since my work is happening the way it is supposed to happen, I would not have been implement this policy if this was not there, right? So if working women, I mean, traveling since 8 o'clock in the morning, reaching to office at 9, leaving after 6 o'clock, finance department, you generally know that there is always some or the other reason to sit late. I mean, we find out reasons, right? Audits or whatever. So we find out that, so instead of that, I mean, if I'm allowing them to work from home, I mean, it will definitely help them to cater to their families as well as to handle the work also. So that way, I think it will definitely help. And in my endeavor, I will definitely like to do that. So of course, with the weekly meetings or something. So that's where. So there will be a personal also touch, which so wherever it is possible, we should that club kind of a thing is a right approach, which and that's a very nice suggestion actually, that the policy X is working for X category of people, policy Y can work for Y, and the merging of the two. So that's a brilliant working, Atul. Thank you. I mean, it's a very good tip for me. Yeah, Bala.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Milind. So, Atulji, specifically for you, I mean, social distancing imperatives and the shortage of migrant workers will continue to impede businesses. So, how are organizations coping with these challenges in your perspective amidst the backdrop of stressful operations? Again, as you outlined, Q1 was a washout, but then Q2, you're looking at the innovative ways of bringing back some revenue streams and so on. So, how exactly are you dealing with the shortage of migrant workers, especially considering that you head talent acquisition over there? And how are you looking at coping with this?
Bala, to a great extent, we are not in that crisis because our dependence on migrant workers is almost negligible. Almost negligible because kind of workforce which we have, if I divide in three broad categories, and this is how we look at our manpower. One is sales, both ad sales as well as distribution sales. Distribution is when you distribute your channels to various operators, cable operators to a larger one like Tata Skies of the world and Hathways and Dance. Corporate, I say. Distribution sales happens like an institutional sales or like an SME sale, and our own people are there across India. So our dependence as far as the migrant workforce is there is almost negligible. What we need is specialized freelancers which are related to content creation. And second is related to the production on set when their shoots are happening, and Sony do not do own production. Mostly we engage production houses. Couple of large properties which we do on our own production. So, for example, KBC is a big show which is our own production. That's where lots of people which are shoot support staff, you can say. Those are the people, but generally they work through agencies, which is generally Cine Artist Association kind of thing. So our problem is not related to as much as that area as possible, migrant. Our problem is with respect to human resources as concerned is related to very niche area. For example, I am running an OTT platform called Sony Live. I need technology people, I need product people, and most of them, our base is Mumbai, and most of these OTT companies, platforms, e-commerce are based either out of Bangalore or out of Gurgaon. At this point of time, when I need, because of some resignation happening, or probably we are expanding because we relaunched Sony Live in the month of May. So we need people in that space, and that's where the problem is. People are not migrating from those cities to Mumbai. Even if I'm hiring, their insistence is that probably we won't be able to relocate to Mumbai, say before March. Will you allow us to operate out of Bangalore? Will you allow us to operate out of Gurgaon or Hyderabad? Because technology hubs are these cities. Mumbai that way as a center of gravity as far as the creative talent is concerned.
Yes.
But unfortunately, in the new mode of entertainment, when you look at these companies are less creative company, more of an analytics and technology driven companies. They buy content, production houses are ready to sell it off. So, or they commission a production house to work on that. So my problem is in high technology, data science, OTT product and technology people, their unwillingness to relocate from the city. And in this scenario, that's a problem which as a talent acquisition person, I am facing.
Sure. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
That's where as a solution, when you ask me what kind of solution, this work from home extension of that. And that's where an organization like TeamLease will come in play. If you up your game, gig workforce which is coming in place. So for example, I need a script writer, and the script writer sitting in Varanasi, or maybe sitting in somewhere Shimla, or some place in down south. Do I need that place person necessarily be in Mumbai? If it is, it will be a better for us because the person will be involved in all kind of creative discussions with my production teams. However, with all technological tools available, I can have even somebody sitting in Venezuela. Venezuela can also be my script writer or maybe a creative person. I don't
Mm.
need them. So now this gig workforce or gig economy will take a bigger you know, shape and size as the time will pass, and it will be a kind of permanent. And then, see, I'll give you one example. This year's task completed list. Finance completed their audits. Finance published their balance sheet without going to the office. HR completed last year's appraisals, and we distributed our bonuses, and we did a goal setting for the next year. Despite whatever is happening, but we did a goal setting. Then we did hirings online, we did inductions online, we did trainings, as I mentioned, online. We launched as a business Sony version 2.0, complete relaunch. We did in the lockdown only, in the midst of lockdown. We did largest ever auditions for KBC. It never happened. When the lockdown is there and we went virtual, we did largest ever registration and audition for KBC. So when you look at business point, business related activities, nothing is stopped. It means there is a possibility actually, which we have tested now, and KBC team is saying that we will never go, on field to do audition and registration, because this worked much better, much efficient, and much larger number people responded, and time efficient. So there are plus side of that, which will actually force everybody to rethink, to change the business processes, as you mentioned in your topic of conversation. Uh, uh, think beyond what is a traditional way of working. Uh, Gig economy, gig workforce is going to play a very big role. And that's where the legislation also need to change. They cannot operate on that same old kind of labor laws. If I need to engage a creative person or a writer or anybody for that project duration, possibly only and sitting somewhere else, what need to change? Like somebody is talking about change in gratuity equation. If it has worked as a gig workforce for a 1 year with me, another person is eligible for a gratuity, should be eligible ideally. There is no need for person to hang around for 5 years. He will not get, because 5 year my project will be over. I won't be able to continue that.
Sure.
Unnecessary things. So government also look into the whole legislation and these aspects in light with the new reality of gig economy, virtual workplaces, virtual workforce, and all those things. So this is how it is going to change. This is how I look at personally.
Sure. No, makes sense. Absolutely. Mr. Miran, again, same question. I think for you, this could be even more relevant as to how exactly you're dealing with the challenge of migrant workers, and how stressful is it really for your organization amidst the background of already stressed operations?
See, there were not many for us. I mean, as Atul is saying, but yes, we lost a lot of people, and those were basically of the technical nature, which we are into repairs, etc. So some highly skilled staff, which actually touches the machine, we lost. Some junior staff we lost. So we had to replace them quickly, right? So that's where I mean team leads and all such organizations. I mean our team also worked out a lot in the market to restore this headcount back, because our main focus was customer support, right? So
Right.
we did that. And so going forward, actually the same challenge, I mean, with highly skilled staff, this problem is still there. As to
Mm.
people are not moving, as I mean, Atul is saying that people just are there. They're scared basically now to move out of any place. So now, I mean, Bangalore has become the next hub to Mumbai, where COVID situation is really becoming worse. So people
Yes.
are scared, and that has become our biggest challenge to get a highly skilled labor. People are not. First of all, this is very niche skill which is not available in the market,
Yeah.
but two, people are not traveling. So now I mean we have to find out innovative ways to fill up the gaps. So that's the problem. And then IT, this kind of a technical specialized staff, is way more in demand today. So that has put additional pressure on us. So that, I mean, the help kind of a staff is very easily available still today. That's not a big challenge. The problem comes with the skilled labor. That's the tough ask for us.
Great. All right. To wrap it up, we'll ask one question and then we'll take questions from the audience as well. So, Mr. Atul, what do you think the future of work is going to look like? And what are the key shifts do you think that HR as a function needs to make in the next 1 year, 5 year, 10-year horizon? Are we looking at reimagining the future role of HR while assisting in business continuity and fluidity with the new norms? And yeah, from the perspective of people, process, and technology.
A 5-year, 10-year perspective will be too large. It is difficult for anyone to even predict what is going to happen in 6 months. On the lighter side, the point is, yes, I am 100% convinced that there will be a new way of working and there will be a new set of rules of the games. Not only because of COVID, but whatever we have learned during this crisis. As I mentioned, one example of KBC, registration and auditions. So these are the things which are very far process efficient, time efficient, and cost efficient. And if it is, then why should not we adopt it on a permanent basis? So first of all, the way it is going to change is that everything is going to be looked from the lens of efficiency, and not only from the cost efficiency, how we can do a better job in a less amount of time or lesser efforts. One. Second would be we as a HR, probably our role will be much more direct with respect to the sustainability of the business. Because at this point of time, what we have realized, one thing is that more than ever, and all CEOs say that human resources are assets for the organization. Although this human resource accounting or asset accounting is not there at all in the financial terms. However, it's a one asset which is appreciating as asset, because as you keep on getting your own experience and knowledge keeps on increasing, it's an appreciating asset. However, leaving that aside, overall approach to the human resource treatment in the organization will differ because of the two reasons. It will be a gig economy which will come in play. Second, there will be a very clear segmentation of roles. I gave you from the workplace point of view the segmentation, home, room, hub, club. Tomorrow it will be a different kind of segments. My core role, my non-core role. These are the things which probably traditionally I'm doing in-house. I can leave it to the outsource partners, outsourcing. In telecom industry, they have used it for many years, but now it will be far more focused. That's I believe would be, and all across. So there will be more different kind of segmentations will come in play, and according to that, one cookie cutter approach with respect to our processes, systems, and policies is not going to work. People have different, like Milind mentioned, working women and young mothers. They have a different need. So I was just, when we were looking into this whole aspect, and I was talking to some of the female, and we have 30% female ratio in our workforce. And they mentioned that nowadays, because of the pandemic, crashes are closed. Another problem for us. Even if allow us to come to office, we won't be able to, because we have kids around. So then you have to think much more holistically from all dimensions, and it will be far more inclusive workforce these days. And as the technology proliferation will be more, there will be more inclusive workforce. People from different walks of life will keep on coming. Today, when we look at the diversity equation, I'm just giving you, normally we tell gender diversity, as I mentioned 30%, but for a media organization like us, which is in a content creation, we look diversity of regional diversity or ethnic diversity also. Do we have people from Northeast working for me, or do we have a people from Kashmir work for me or not? Because we are serving content to them also. We need a diversity from, age diversity. Do we have only youngsters working for the organization, or do we have people who are from different age segments also? So when these different kind of people will be there, uh, joined by only one thing, which is probably objective of the organization, values of the organization, and largely, which is the most tangible aspect, will be the technology. So you need technology literate people. You need people who know, who can engage with each other much better. People with a preset prejudiced mind probably may not be able to be a part of inclusive workforce. So when that kind of workforce will be there, your policies will be very, very different. You have to write a policy which will be completely gender agnostic. Even the wording and letters of those policies will be very different. So how I see is that that kind of workplace will emerge. Purely when you look at technology intervention, that will be totally different workplace. I believe if we keep on following the trajectory which is right now set in, 3 to 5 years down the line, we will not be able to recognize these are our offices only. It will be so much technology enabled to a smaller thing that you will be able to, or reverse, you will not be able to get your coffee by touching the machine. It will be completely contactless. That much of technological, collaboration, infiltration in our lives is going to happen.
Sure.
You can't deal with that. And because of that, privacy laws, labor laws, legislation, lot many things are going to change.
Definitely. It's a very real and very likely possibility. It's only been accelerated by a few years. I completely agree with you there. And Milind, just to wrap it up at your end. So how are you building a resilient finance function when liquidity is the biggest challenge right now? And how do you again think the future of work is going to look like from your lens, from a people, process, and technology standpoint?
See, as I told you, the finance fortunately was not a big challenge. But then what happened was, as the business is picking up, we are investing a lot of money there. So that's where, I mean, we are spending every penny very cautiously, and every purchase is getting questioned. So we are like really and really strict as far as the finances are concerned. Money where it is getting spent, where we are possible, there is a possibility to collect. So everywhere we are running very tight. So that's the only way. I mean, you have to protect your money, because that's the cash is the king in this kind of a scenario which we face. So that's what is the where we are working on. The second is the people process. So as Atul has said, the people and the technology, I mean, we have to be bending them together, because technology as such will not be able to deliver me anything. People are the ones who are going to deliver. The biggest challenge which I face is there is a very less interaction. Earlier, I mean, you can see the person, you can watch him working, so you can very easily understand their feelings, as the loneliness, as Atul has been mentioning throughout. So that is becoming a big concern. So through technology, I mean, as Atul has said, really nice things about some of the webinars or sessions which he has been having in his organization. So something like that, even if we can use the technology to take it to the next level of just everybody is maybe so we'll be investing more on technology where it's a VPN enabled, where we can anybody can talk to anybody very easily, like the way MS Teams is getting used. So that way it is like just call somebody and you can do a video call very easily if you are just integrated between Windows and Microsoft. So that way it's a really handy tool which will happen going forward in the future. So that way technology is the real player which will play a big role, but people aspect we have to be really very careful about, because if we lose that touch, then even the organizational results will not be able to get. So that's the aspect which I've been really concerned with going forward.
Great, fantastic. We've got a lot of questions from the audience, and we've consolidated them, and I'm going to be asking them to you by way of a rapid fire round. Yeah. So, Atulji, I'll start with you. When do you think we'll go back to pre-COVID levels of growth? That's question number one.
Never.
That is
Since you asked me a rapid fire thing,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's probably the most concise, succinct, and perfect answer I've heard for this question all through these 25 sessions. All right. Would there be lesser jobs in India in the next 12 months?
It will be different kind of jobs, not lesser. It may be more.
All right. Do you think average salaries will go down in the next few quarters?
No, it will either have a hockey stick curve or weaker. Indian economy will bounce back, and there will be more demand.
All right. Do you think organizations will have an antibiotic reaction towards anything that's fixed going forward? Fixed offices, fixed workforce, fixed salaries, etc.
Everything will be relooked.
Okay. Question 5. COVID has proven that work from home is a viable alternative. Can this become a sustainable reality in India?
Yes.
Okay. What percentage of your workforce will permanently work from home?
The way we did a segmentation, I see only 40% of the people may probably require to come to office once in a while.
Wow.
Permanently is around 20%. Permanently in the office maybe 20%.
Okay. So 80% of the people you are going to put them on a rotational basis or something.
Yes.
All
Possible.
right.
It depends upon, as I said, our effort is to take everybody along. It may be a gradual approach. If everybody is convinced, I'm giving you statistically what is possible. It is up to 80%. Company decides, say it is, we can have only 40% probably in the phase one manner or whatever the methodology. We leave it to a consensus to emerge on that.
What is your single biggest technology investment to get ready for post-COVID scenario?
Collaboration tools. That's the first one. But there are many dependents. Banks are taking my salary advice. We have a banker, Axis Bank, which insists on a physical signature these days, rather than a digital. So my payroll person in finance, she was insisting that you need to finalize everything fast. It all depends upon how the ecosystem also respond to that. And there are many other technological tools which we are saying, for example, there are some tools that are specific to our industry which we are working on. For example, I tell you a bigger one, but whatever happens in terms of shootings and programs comes to a post-production site, which is inside the office and where physically people need to work on seeing the quality, color combinations, sound and everything. So that's called post-production, and where we need to special effects and certain things which we need to add on. Right now, the entire post-production is office based, and that will be the hub category I was mentioning, that whatever happens, they need to be there. What we are moving entire post-production to the cloud. That happens, everyone in post-production can also work from home. So that will be a big investment for us.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That's very futuristic. Sounds extremely futuristic, because I'm somebody who's interested personally in content creation and production of movies specifically. And that sounds, I think, surreal. Forget about unreal. It sounds surreal. I mean, if it happens, that'll be fantastic. Great. Thanks so much, Atul sir. I think that was the last of the rapid fire questions. And over to you, Milind sir. Same set of questions. Yep. So when do you think we will go back to pre-COVID levels of growth?
2 years.
Okay. Do you think there will be lesser jobs in India in the next 12 months?
No. As Atul has said, it will be clearly different. I mean, jobs are there. They will not go anywhere.
Right.
Work is there. Work has never gone.
Absolutely. Do you think average salaries or wages will go down in the next few quarters?
No. No.
Do you think organizations will have an antibiotic reaction towards anything that's fixed? It could be fixed offices or fixed workforce, fixed salaries, fixed tenure, etc.
Not everything, but some aspect will definitely be looked into.
Okay. COVID has proven that work from home is a viable alternative. Do you think this can become a sustainable reality in India?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. What percentage of your workforce is going to permanently work from home?
See, for us, most of the repairs happen. So there is a direct labor which is there. So around 80% of labor works on that. So other than that, there is 20%, of which I think 50% I will be able to take it up. So 10%.
Got it. So 10% of your overall workforce. Got it. Got it. Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, of course. Last question. What's your single biggest technology investment to get ready for post-COVID scenario?
Yeah, that's, as Atul was saying, collaborative tools, which will be very essential for us to keep engaged with the employees. that touch is missing, which I would like to bridge as a gap as a first priority.
All right, fantastic. I think that also rounds up all of the questions we've got from the audience as well. Thank you so very much for your time, both of you. I think it was very interesting to hear perspectives from both HR vertical and from finance vertical, but then the objective seems to be the same. It is to, through your own lens and through your own means, you both seem to be supporting and reinforcing business and try and bring it back on track. And you're trying to make sure that at the same time, you're not leaving anyone in the lurch. I think that's what, by and large, I've been able to gather from our conversation with you. So thank you so much once again for your time, Mr. Atul Sharma, and also Mr. Milind Sulaki. It was wonderful having you as part of your panel today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bala.